Hey INFPs, in today's video we're talking about whether you as an INFP should share your ideas or whether you should keep your ideas secret. And in this video we're going to be discussing what happens if you share an idea with other people and what could happen if you try to keep your ideas to yourself. And now as an INFP you might find yourself one day just having an idea for a project, an idea for something you'd like to learn, or an idea for something you'd like to do, or for some place you'd like to go. And the truth is, don't be scared. It happens to the best of us, right? So everyone eventually finds themselves with an idea, and an idea can, at its longest, it can sit with you for maybe a decade, 15 years, 20 years. Some people have held on to the ideas for their entire life without ever acting on it, but it's still been there, even when they're 60, it's still there. And, at that point they're like, that idea is just there to be a reminder to me, to never miss out on opportunities in the future. And I've found that very thought-provoking because, the truth is, you don't have to do anything with your ideas. The truth is, if you don't want to act on an idea, or if you don't feel that it's a good idea, you can just let it sip over to somebody else. Because in some ways, if you keep an idea to yourself and just let it pass along, you'll have other ideas. New ideas will come along. Yeah, you missed out on that idea, but there's always more than enough ideas for the entire world to run around its own shoulder a million times, right? So we've got more than enough creative capacity, and you haven't missed a boat or a ship. It's not too late. It's not the end of the world if you're not able to execute your idea. Now, the thing that I see happening the most with INFPs is this tendency to, ask yourself, should I keep my ideas private? Or should I talk with other people about them? Because in many ways, when you start talking with friends and family members, about your ideas, two things happen. The first thing, which is really nice, is people tend to, at least if you're in a good environment, be very supportive and very encouraging of you. They'll be like, that's a great idea. Yes, you should definitely do that. It's gonna be amazing. And, that's such a good idea, And you hear that and, you're like, wow, oh, great. Now I should be happy that they're happy, but now I feel this pressure, right? Now I feel like suddenly I have to, do something. Now I really have to do it. And, now it has to be amazing. Now it has to be perfect. Now it has to be the best thing ever. And I don't know if I can do the best thing. I don't know if I have what it takes. I don't know if I can do that. And then, there's this immediate feeling of disappointment because it's like, oh yeah, now whatever I'm going to do is never going to live up to their expectations, because now whatever the end result will be, if I write that book, if I go to that place, if I do that thing, it's never going to be what they expected it to be, and it's not going to be good enough. So, suddenly there's this tendency to, should I even do it, right? And so I've often come across a lot of people that say you should hold on to or sit with your ideas for a while before you start talking about them with other people. And the reason for this is twofold. Well, of course, you reduce the pressure of other people's expectations, but most importantly, by not sharing your ideas with other people, you learn to act on intrinsic motivation. So, when you do something, when you pursue an idea, not because somebody else is expecting you to, not because somebody else is going to be happy for you if you do it, but because you want to, because you feel it's the right thing to do, because you care about it, because you think it's important. Well, if you're able to do that, you're able to move on intrinsic motivation, and while external motivation fades, the truth is external motivation is very fickle. People can be super excited one day and, kind of disinterested the next day, external motivation is very fickle. Intrinsic motivation tends to be relatively stable because, if you become your own cheerleader, if you become the person that motivates you, if you become the person that's supporting you and helping you do these things, right? Well, then it's like having an engine that never goes out, right? Because that's what intrinsic motivation is. Intrinsic motivation is limitless well, and it's like something that has been discussed by so many philosophers and creative thinkers and geniuses around the world, that we have inside ourselves this infinite source of energy, and if we're able to tap into that and do things for our own sake because we feel it's right, we can have this near endless motivation, which helps us stay consistent in projects and in goals and things that we do, right? The problem is, shouldn't we want to share with other people? And perhaps another problem that INFPs might run into is this: sometimes I never share anything, and I just become very secretive and very reserved and very private, and I end up just holding my ideas for myself and never talking with anyone, right? Because many INFPs also have this reverse problem of skepticism, right? Especially if you've been raised in a negative environment where people had very high expectations and were very critical of things you did, you become very quiet and you don't talk with people about things. And even if you have made a song, even if you have written a novel, even if you have, done a project, you still don't really dare to show it to anyone, and you still don't really think it's good enough, and you still don't really feel that it's something that's worth, being told to other people. And there's even this fear that, what if I put this out and it's misunderstood? What if people read a book and they don't understand what it's about? What if people hear the song and they don't get it? And what if people, if I put all this work into something and people don't like it, right? And now I think we shouldn't really be lying to ourselves and say that, we can only do things for our own sake, and we shouldn't care at all about what other people think, and we shouldn't at all consider the community around us and things like that. But the truth is, people are social animals, right? So we want to feel useful, we want to provide some value to the world, we want to be able to do good for other people, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with wanting attention, wanting approval, wanting praise, wanting to be appreciated by other people, or wanting to be understood. These are all normal things to want, and things that everyone will sometimes find themselves thinking about. Everyone will sometimes wish that other people saw them more, or listened to them more, or understood something about them that they don't maybe feel currently is understood, right? So these are normal things to feel, right? So I'm not telling you here to stop wanting those things or to stop caring about those things. All I'm saying is make sure that you consider as well, what image that you want to set for the world, what example you want to be for other people, right? Because it's a lot of the time when it comes to, pursuing ideas, we have to get things clear to ourselves about pursuing ideas. The point is not for the idea to be perfect. The point is not that it should have been a smooth journey, that it should have been a straight sail, to the end, and everything at the end result should have been sunshine and roses. It's supposed to be an epic, right? So when you think of an epic, it's, a story that reflects change over time. There should have been progress. You set out with one goal, but when you got there, there was a change. Something happened to you, or when you were making this, or when you were doing this, or when you were working on this project, you learned something, or experienced something, or faced a problem and overcame it, right? So, whatever it is that you do, it needs to reflect change over time. That's one thing that's very important, right? Why is it important? It's important because it has to reflect and has to tell people that, nobody starts out perfect, nobody has all the answers, nobody knows everything, right? That's about setting an example, right? You don't want to set the example for everyone that, everything has to be perfect and beautiful right away, and that everything has to work out right away. You don't need that level of perfectionism. You don't need that level of exceptional standard. You just need it to be a project or an idea or a story or something you did that reflects that you grew, something that showed that I did this and it made me grow as a person and it made me improve something or learn something that I didn't previously know. It also needs to be a reflection of you, right? So whatever it is that you do, it has to be a reflection of how you feel and of who you are and what it is that is important to you. It should be a reflection of your values, right? You shouldn't be writing about other people's values. You shouldn't be writing about other people's opinions or what other people think, right? That's the extrinsic motivation taking over again, like the feeling that you have to be somebody else to be successful, the feeling like you have to do what other people are doing to be successful, right? It doesn't need to be that. It just has to be a story about you and how you feel and about what you are like, right? And the reason for this, the reason why this is such an important thing, right, is because, well, pursuing ideas and working to fulfill and achieve ideas and projects in the world should not necessarily be so much about the content of the ideas themselves, but as much as the content of what you are meant to do and how this idea reflects you and your struggles and your feelings and what is important to you, right? So the reason why that's so important is really just a matter of, getting people to realize that we live in a human world, right? In these days, we could have AI produce anything. We could have AI make our art, write our stories, build our software, run our entire society, right? But we're living in a social world where everyone's craving human contact. So ultimately, people are not going to be interested in buying any just a random AI-generated image that they see online. They want to buy a picture because they are curious about the artist and the artist's inner world and feelings and what's important to them because, the buyer happens to be human, right? So that's a very important thing to consider. And the same reason why we buy into, Elon Musk's Tesla is the exact same thing. People are curious about the phenomenon of Elon Musk. They're fascinated with him as a person and his ideas and thoughts and his world, and by buying a Tesla, people are trying to understand what it's like to be him and think like him and to live his life, right? So in a way, it's all about connection. Most of these ideas that we do and these projects doesn't have to matter if it's art or books or it's inventions or technology. It's our desire to connect with the creator that made it and to understand what they are feeling and what's important about them, right? So if the idea that you have is a reflection of you and is honest and a reflection of what you feel, and if it reflects a change over time or something that you learned or some kind of progress, then it's an epic, right? And we're talking about something that has the potential to reach people and connect with people and to make an impact on other people. And here we have to also be clear to ourselves, what that means, right? Because, you can get to a point where it's like, I put so much of my heart and soul into this. I put so much work into this. Now it has to, really change the world. Now it has to become an instant hit and bestseller. Now everyone has to read it. Now everyone has to like it. And if not everyone likes it, if people criticize it, if there are people out there that don't understand it, right? Well, then it's not good enough, right? So there's this desire to have universal relatability, universal connection of being able to, reach people all over the planet, right? And here we have to be kind of clear to ourselves, if that's what we're seeking, we're not going to be happy with the end result of that idea. If that's what you're hoping for by doing this, it's not going to bring you joy and it's not going to bring anyone else joy either, right? Because it's going to just be a voice of quiet desperation and a desire for approval. And while that can be relatable to some extent, because everyone has those tendencies in them, it's also something I think sets you up for failure in the long term, right? So holding on to your ideas is a way to avoid those kinds of desires, but ultimately, of course, eventually you're going to have to share. You're going to have to put something out there, and often what I see is some of the best works that I read were stories that were just meant for one other person, right? So, for example, I've seen authors write books for their spouse, or I've seen people put in a lot of effort into, giving their husband or wife, an amazing day or an experience somewhere, by going somewhere or doing something really amazing. I've seen people use their creativity, in these private contexts for, their closest friends or family members, or in a small community or organization. And often it's these ideas that, end up becoming the biggest ideas, because they're small and concrete and simple things that, if shared, or if other people hear about it, it's going to be something that instantly inspires other people, right? So I think we also have to consider that when we think about audience reach and things like that, right? Because the best demographic to start with is always with your friends and family members or loved ones, or a community that you care about, right? If it's a community or nonprofit or organization of people that you really connect with or want to connect with, those kind of ideas tend to do the best. Facebook was started as for college, right, for students, right? So we often start a lot smaller than what we end up being, right? And yeah, that also keeps the relativity or relatability of it, because that means that people who listen to those things, they're going to instantly connect with what you say, because they know who you are and they know what it's like to be you, because they probably live similar lives to you or have had similar experiences to you. And they're going to be very, very positive to hear those thoughts and feelings that you have echoed back in themselves.